fight of the year for 2016. And in this case, all three of us, I believe, are in agreement, and it was one that just occurred. It was Cub Swanson and Doo Ho Choi at UFC 206 right here in Toronto at the Air Canada Centre, and I thought that Robbie Lawler and Carlos Condit would be a lock for fight of the year, but I watched that fight, and I think that was one of the all-time classic fights, and just an incredible fight. Being there live maybe added to it as well, but it was one that I don't think we're going to forget anytime soon.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why this fight was so spectacular is because people were talking about UFC 206 and it wasn't going to deliver. It was sandwiched in between UFC 205 in New York and the return of Ronda Rousey. This fight card that was supposed to feature Georges St-Pierre, the former welterweight champion, never materialized. The fight with Daniel Cormier and Anthony Rumble Johnson, that fight fell apart. So when you look at this 145-pound battle, there were no titles on the line. You never knew. You didn't even know if the winner of this fight would get the crack at the top guy in the division. But what you saw was magic inside of that cage for 15 minutes. You saw the back and forth, the push and pull. Both guys had their moments. You saw creativity and toughness, and you saw the beauty and the brutality of mixed martial arts. Everybody that watched this fight came away with it thinking it was one of the greatest fights they've ever had the good fortune of witnessing.
If you share time with us here at Fight Network, we talked about this one for months. Once it was announced, the beauty of Cub Swanson's artistic technique, the way that he puts it together, how fearless he is and how much emotion he controls and channels against Doo Ho Choi, this brilliant developing artist in his own right, who goes in and he analyzes you within the moments, tries to figure you out, time you, read you. And Choi was pushed to the limit by Swanson, who interrupted his thought process, didn't allow him to fully, assess and analyze the picture. That was a beautiful fight, technically, emotionally, psychologically, physiologically. It was something very special. And we thank those guys for that fight, and we thank them for it again, because it makes our job easier forever when we try to explain to somebody, why is this sport and art? Why is it so beautiful? We're now just going to point them at that fight.
It was also a case of two fighters going into a fight and coming out of it, in my opinion, bigger stars than before. And that's saying a lot for Cub Swanson with the pedigree he has, but especially for Doo Ho Choi. I mean, we saw media coming over here from South Korea, and I think Doo Ho Choi firmly establishing himself as the #1 fight-related celebrity ahead of Robin Black, with all due respect, after that fight. But it was afterwards, when Doo Ho Choi is being interviewed, you saw that standing ovation at the Air Canada Centre. It's a bit of a cliche saying there was no loser in that particular fight, but even in defeat, I feel Doo Ho Choi is such a bigger commodity now because of this fight, and wherever he goes next, I think he's going to have that much more of a following.
Yeah, 100%. Like, win or lose, Doo Ho Choi gets to further his mixed martial arts career because now he knows what it's like to be in there with a fighter the caliber of Cub Swanson, and you just get that sense that Doo Ho Choi is going to come back stronger than ever and deliver on a different level.
Such an incredible fight, man. So amazing.
Before we move to the next category, some other fights as well. I do want to mention Lawler and Condit.
Amazing.
If Doo Ho Choi and Swanson was 1A, that was my 1B. You guys were there for Steve Bosse and Sean O'Connell.
Incredible.
Which was nuts.
Fedor and Maldonado as well went down this year.
That was something of the year. Awesome. I don't know exactly. Tony Ferguson, Lando Venata. I mean, some incredible fights this year. But we move on over now to Fighter of the Year, and I went against you guys. I thought there were a number of candidates you could make arguments for. Some years, it's just an easy pick. I would say if we were to say MVP of the year, there was nobody that meant more than Conor McGregor. The business of the UFC would be drastically different without him. However, my Fighter of the Year is Stipe Miocic. He started off the year with a win over Andre Arlovski, then goes to Brazil and knocks off Fabricio Verdum in incredible fashion, and then defends his title in Cleveland against Alistair Overeem. Three champions in their past that he knocked off this year, and for once we have a heavyweight on top that I think could have a sustained reign, knock on wood here with Stipe Miocic. But he was my pick, very close, and you guys had a pick that I certainly went back and forth with.
Yeah, I'm not surprised with Stipe Miocic because you look at the heavyweight division in the history, he's very, very different than a lot of these guys, and maybe he is the mold that we're going to see from a lot of heavyweights in the future. Wow, you can be big and strong and mobile and athletic. Let's try to gear ourselves. Let's try to make that I'm sure that's what a lot of heavyweight fighters, that would be the goal, to try to be a guy like Stipe Miocic. But as you pointed out, we all have different picks. My guy, the Ultimate Fighter Season 3 winner, Michael Bisping's been in this game for a long, long time, has faced some of the best fighters, the biggest names. He understands how to sell a fight, and the year that he had, starting with this fight with Anderson Silva and all the drama that went down, the flying knee, and then he comes back and he gets this knockout victory over the specimen Luke Rockhold after taking the fight on short notice, and then to have this unbelievable fight with Dan Henderson, just going after the legend and redeeming himself, avenging a loss after getting beaten up. Michael Bisping, he is my fighter of the year because everything that he's done for mixed martial arts.
This was the culmination of his career this year.
And the fact that he got to put that UFC title around his waist, I was freaking out.
Yeah, I like both picks. I had to go with Mike as well. You know, when you look at that, and Ramdeen did a great job of summing that up. Start out your year, who is it? Oh, Anderson Silva. Okay. Well, you know, people counted him out against Anderson Silva. And then goes ahead and beats Anderson Silva. Beautiful fight, too. That bit of highlights that we had seen there earlier. Him just playing with range and controlling the scenario and controlling himself. And really showed in that fight. That was a clean victory over Anderson Silva. The one moment where he lost the tension. But then, of course, this is it. He saw right into Luke Rockhold's ear and delivered that huge left hook. That had been designed. That had been planned. That was a strategy he had built. And the fight of the year, this could have been fight of the year, too.
I was going to say, this is certainly a candidate.
Yeah. Hey, man, Mike Bisping is always going to be, for whatever reason, underappreciated, I think, in mixed martial arts. Not by us, ever. Man. And it's not just, he's fun, he's entertaining, et cetera, et cetera. He's an incredibly skilled mixed martial artist, incredibly skilled combat sportsman. And I think sometimes when you have extra things, whether it be you're funny on television or you say funny shit, whatever it is, you know, when you sometimes that will overshadow the skills. Michael Bisping is an incredibly highly skilled mixed martial artist, and maybe next year we'll be talking about his retirement. You never know. And maybe then we'll really start to appreciate him.
Other candidates I'd throw out there, even with the loss, I mean, Conor McGregor avenging that loss to Nate Diaz and then becoming a two-division champion, defeating Eddie Alvarez. I think he's should be in the discussion.
Of course.
Donald Cerrone coming up to 170 pounds. A year ago, he was coming off that lightweight title loss, goes 4-0 this year. Alex Oliveira, Patrick Cote, and then follows with Rick Story and Matt Brown. That's a hell of a year for Donald Cerrone at 170 pounds. Max Holloway is another one you can throw in there. Stephen Thompson. Yeah. It was a big year for a number of fighters, but our picks divided. 2 for Michael Bisping and myself going with Stipe Miocic. And then fight of the year, Doo Ho Choi versus Cub Swanson.